I am Jim Herbek, Extension Grain Crop Specialist with the University of Kentucky, located in Western Kentucky at the Research and Education Center. And want to talk a little about soybean planting dates today on some of the recent research that we have been doing on soybean planting. And this is being funded by the Kentucky Soybean Promotion Board. We have done 4 years of research so far. And basically here is to find out if we needed to remodify our planting date recommendations. Prior to this, we generally recommended the best dates were early May up to early June without any significant yield losses. But things have changed, and so we wanted to go back and look at this, and so we did a series of planting dates starting in mid-April, about every 2 weeks, ending up in early July. So we had 7 planting dates during that time period. We did this for 4 years, and during these 4 years we had tremendous differences in the weather environment. 2 of the years were we consider normal or very good growing seasons. 2 of them were what we would call very drought stress seasons in 2008 and 2010, where we had very dry later summers in July and August and on the hotter side. But basically every year that we did this, whether it was an exceptional yield potential year or it was a dry year in which yield potential had dropped down, we found out that if we planted in mid-April, late April, and early May, that had our highest yield potential of soybeans. Once we dropped to that next planting date, which was around the 3rd week in May, we started to drop off in yield, and it continued to decrease as we went into early June, late June, and early July. So despite the weather influenced years, all 4 of those years showed our best yield potential was planting prior to mid-May. After that time, as I mentioned, we dropped off, and when we planted the 3rd week in May, we lost about 8 bushels per acre during that time period. And if you figure this out at today's soybean prices, that's a loss of close to $80, $90, $100 per acre. So planting date does become very important here. Most of our farmers in the state of Kentucky now, currently, if you look back over the last 5-year average, only 25% of our soybeans are planted by mid-May. So discounting the double cropped acreage we have, about 30% in the state, that leaves about 45% of our soybean acreage in the state that does not reach optimum yield potential. That means they're planted after mid-May. So this research should indicate that we need to get out there and plant them prior to mid-May in the state of Kentucky to take advantage of this yield potential that we have, and to also look at this situation in terms of what are some of the concerns. When we plant this early, we are planting at a time period where it's generally stressful. And what I mean by that, it's generally on the wetter side, and it's definitely on the cooler side. So we have delayed emergence, which is one we picked up in our studies here. It probably takes an average of 2 weeks for these earlier plantings to emerge. Up in early May, maybe at least 10 days to emerge. After that time period, they all emerge within a week. And because of that delayed emergence, we have a loss in stand. We took data on this also, and basically those earlier planting dates where we had our optimum yield potential, we probably achieved a 70 to 75% stand. So this needs to be taken into account when we're planting early there. We don't want to reduce our seeding rates exceedingly low, because we reduce some of the stand, we're going to probably achieve stands below 100,000 plants per acre. So we need to keep that up there. Take into account you're probably going to lose more and at least achieve 100,000 plants per acre. The other thing on these earlier plantings is that we possibly have some early bean leaf beetle infestation. When we plant this early, there aren't many fields out there at that time, so the overwintering generation of bean leaf beetle tends to hone in on these fields, and as these soybeans emerge, they can be quite stressful. So you need to scout these fields and spray or use an insecticide seed treatment. Also use high quality seed to ensure that you get a better stand. That means good germination, good vigor. And also use a seed treatment fungicide, because the delay in emergence, they're more prone to get infested with soil-borne diseases like Pythium phytophthora. So we need to use a seed treatment fungicide. So to sum it all up, we need to be planting, at least in the western part of the state of Kentucky, our soybeans by mid-May, and to achieve the full yield potential and gain the extra value of not only the yield but the whole total production value of our soybeans.